I'm back. Aren't you glad to hear my voice again? I'm so excited. 6 people listened yesterday. I have no idea who they would have been. Are they people I know? Did they find me because YouTube switched my thumbnail from what I was starting with on that video to the first thing I changed it to, which is the aperture picture, the famous aperture picture that demonstrates the binary vibrational mindset, your source mind and your physical mind. And anyway, I don't know, six listeners yesterday. That's so exciting. I wonder how many of them I knew. Maybe all of them. I will find it interesting when a stranger finally breaks through, because honestly, I am doing absolutely nothing to optimize my to do any SOE, search engine optimization. I not in any way, not picking the thumbnails, not the way my description is, not what my titles are or anything. I'm just I'm practicing and I'm building a body of work. And it's at this point, at least largely for myself. Although I don't really do it just for myself. I do it for all of us. Because I believe in all of us. I believe in Project Humanity. And in the service of Project Humanity, I offer up Project Who Am I? Which is this forum. We come into this space for somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. So far, since I have declared the new format, I have never gone over the 2 hours, and it is my intention not to go over. A couple minutes before is fine. 1:59 is fine. 2 o'clock, 2 hours even, not so much. I come into this space, and the idea is we are in a state of non-resistant thought. In this forum, we're not actually talking any specific details about what to do to fix anything, other than a discussion of who we are and how our equipment functions helps us to align ourselves with our inner being. So I'm kind of telling you to do that. But other than that, every other shot must be called by you from where you stand. Now, you can have help from others. And certainly as you're small and young and growing, you should have lots of help from your elders and such. But you have to call your own shots. You have to make the determination from the where you stand on the grid as to what the impulses from source feel like from that position. What does the view of the allness look like from your position? We're all looking at the same allness in a way. But there is so much more to it. There are so many more dimensions to it. There's so many more potentials to it. There's so many more. I mean, when I say we're all looking at the same thing, it's way bigger than most people are giving it credit for. They take a very flat, three-dimensional, conventionally physical view of our situation and imagine that that's what we're all looking at, the same thing. And that's not it at all. It's way bigger than that. Each human being has within themselves a whole universe, and the universe that we all share is not a single one that we better all get on board with, but a bigger one that includes all of our universes. None of us have to shift in that way. We just need to line our universes up with the universe of source, with what's real, with what the laws of the universe are, and what the rules of the game are, and what the structure of the... Now, fortunately, we have something really, really, really cool going for us. And that is that this divine matrix that we abide in is really... So I'll tell you what it is. It's all the way from one end of the spectrum to the other. So when you are lined up, it is the most beneficent, imaginative, creative, desire-fulfilling machine. A vast cosmic genie waiting for us to focus upon our desire so that it can grant it to us. Because that's what the design is. That's what it's like. But if you do not understand how your machinery works, what your positive and negative emotions are actually trying to tell you. Positive emotion means I'm facing forward. Negative emotion means I've got myself twirled up and I'm facing backwards now for some reason. And it's any moment. In any moment, it's not a general pronouncement of, oh, he's absolutely backwards and she's... It's in the moment. And it has to do with impulses coming from every thought you take. And you, if you're like most people, you were probably a wild mix of, yeah, this really cool thing happened, but man, this jerk on the subway, and oh yeah, I got this raise at work, but my kids, taxes, whatever, and you just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you're trying to get the whole thing. You're trying to get your physical mind is trying to get the whole thing, and actually, this is very laudable. This is an okay thing to do. I realize that, even while I might, shake my finger at you and say, don't do that, I realize I did a certain amount of that myself. And I have realized that all things go into the one picture. There is one picture, and so all of that stuff, good and bad, goes into one picture, and there's a reason why you might want to look at everything. But once you've figured out what the deal is, so you look around and you're like, oh, okay, that's the setup. This is my configuration. This is the avatar on the board, on the grid that I have been dealt. Actually, I have not been dealt this. I selected this one. I selected this avatar. I came into it myself in this position on the grid for reasons of my own, of my bigger self's own. My bigger self can see longer spaces of time and is connected intimately, like feeling the impulses and impetuses, you might say, more than impulses, of a greater number of beings. It's like project bigger me, There's smaller me and then there's project bigger me. So she can see more things. She's involved in more things. She's got more ideas about more stuff. She is not just thinking about bigger stuff. She is absolutely right down to the smallness with you, thinking about what you are thinking about. So she's got the same subjects going on that you're thinking about, but she's likely thinking about them entirely differently. And if you are lost in the past, in a stream of melancholy, you're having a hard time shaking, or in despair, reliving some horror from your past, she's not with you at all anymore. You've lost her altogether, and that's one of the reasons why it feels, why it feels so bad when you are in that position. When you are sitting there lost in the specific memory of some terrible thing that has happened way back when, and almost nobody is thinking about it anymore, and likely nobody is thinking about it anymore. Certainly nobody's inner being is thinking about it anymore. Nothing that counts is focused on it anymore. And so that is why when you focus on it, it feels so bad, because your inner being is not there shining light on anything. You really do need your two selves. They are both you. You are the bigger self as much as you are your smaller self. And vice versa. Your bigger self is also, well, it's not quite, it's like, who matters more? The human being or a liver cell? Now, I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know if God cares about a liver cell as much as God cares about an inner being. I know that a human being is a collective of many, 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 many missions. It's a group project of 50 to 150 trillion souls, depending on how you count cells per square inch and how big you are, I don't really know how that works, but I have heard cellular biologists, or people, maybe they aren't cellular biologists, say all the way from 50 to 150 trillion cells. And I don't know who's right on it. I don't know where the range actually is, whether it really is as big a range as that. But each and every one of your cells is an autonomous asker, offerer of vibration unto the universe of which it occupies. And in the universe of your human body, the cells that are asking, they're all getting exactly what they're asking for. They're asking for, hand me the oxygen. Here, I'll hand you the expired, whatever, out for respiration or whatever. And they're exchanging food. Here, hand me the food. I'll hand you the, whatever. Here's some iron. Here's some, I don't know. But it's working like clockwork within us. And all of our cells are asking with this little ping, 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 ping of vibrational expression. It's a vibrational offering. It's an emission, a vibrational emission. You are a transmitter and a receiver, and you are transmitting to the universe and receiving from the universe. Now, the biggest universe that you are transmitting and receiving to and from is the human universe. And you're transmitting and receiving in all kinds of ways on that unit, everything from verbal and nonverbal and local and non-local. There's all kinds of signals that you're putting out and signals that you're receiving from the field around you. And that is largely bringing you the food supply that you need and the impulses that you have to serve the greater organism. We all need to give back something, each to what makes sense to their abilities. Don't ask a little old lady to dig ditches, and don't ask a ditch digger to solve the Middle East crisis. I mean, not directly. Everybody contributes in their own way, and it flows through the system of humanity in its own way. But each one of us has to be ourselves, has to find our authentic way, for us as a people to find our authentic path, to find a way through the wilderness that we have created, through this monstrosity of current events that I just don't even, I personally don't have any idea exactly what we should do with this mess that we have created, with this empire, with this wolf that we we hold by the ears now and we can't let it go. Which wolf am I talking about? The wolf of empire, perhaps? There's all kinds of wolves. There's all kinds of, analogous wolves. In this case, it's probably the empire. The empire that has, it wields in its power the ability to destroy the planet, to take vengeance on any of its, I don't know how to say that, enemies, with all these guns and military might and such. And here, along with this, we have the most pathetic offering up for president. It almost couldn't be worse. And actually, in a way, from my way of thinking, I almost think it couldn't be better. Now, I know that sounds funny. From a physical standpoint, it really is rather awful. But from a illustrative standpoint and lessons to us about the truth about reality and our situation, our precarious situation as the center of an enormous centralized empire. Centralized empires are not the path of the future. So something about this is going to change. It must change. It will change, because that which is not sustainable just won't be sustained, and we don't have to have any worries about that. However, we do have to worry about it, because if we resist it changing gently and smoothly and incrementally and easily with flow and surety, as opposed to jerking, when the fault line refuses to budge a couple of inches at a time, or an inch at a time as it goes, and instead lurches 36 inches or 6 feet or something in a moment, then all the buildings come down. That's a metaphor. All that's a metaphor. It's like what JFK said, that those who keep, those who make, this is what it is, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And that's sort of analogous. The peaceful revolution is the incremental, and the violent one is the lurchy one that happens because things that are not sustainable cannot be sustained. And we can't fool the energies. You can't trick the energies. You can't subvert them. You can't get them to make you as an exception to anything. So the better idea is to understand how the energies are moving and what you are doing that affects energy flow. Energy flow. There is a way that human beings could flow with one another and their environment that would be perfect, by the way. That would be abundance creating, that would be life sustaining, that would be loving and kind and playful and joyful and sweet and efficient. Did I already say efficient? And would produce all of the things across the board that all human beings care about or desire. It is possible. That is possible. And how it would happen is if there was a general and gentle, sweet, loving, respectful push to help humanity very generally. I'm only talking generally. I'm not talking specifically. Every single specific call must be left to the individual. I mean to encroach on none of that. Amen. Oh, please, I want to iterate that quite strongly. I am not out to tell anybody specifically what to do. But I think, and I'm not telling, I would like to make no rules either about what we have to do or anything like that. It's more like a helpful suggestion of what would help humanity get over all of our problems and get on to some new ones. some new ones created by the old ones being solved. It's like, you have a problem of everybody, hates being bit by black widow spiders in the dark and the cold, and so they bring all the bathrooms inside with flush toilets and, power switches and light and warmth and everything, and it's all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Except, where do we get more water, and what do we do with all the water that we put our poop in, and then, now we have to clean it back up because we just don't want lakes and lakes of poop water. So, and then also, we're running out of adequate sources of electricity, and, in order to keep up what we're trying to do with this, we're robbing the natural environment sometimes of its fair share of the water table, or we're destroying it in other ways as we dig for our dirty oil and refine it, send it down through pipelines, across sacred aquifers, down to the refineries, and then out onto the barges and the tankers, across heaving seas to the markets for those populations out there who have properly commodified their environment, oftentimes, in order to tap into the human energy, the human supply chain, I call it. That's what we do. Now, we can do all this better, and we don't have to do it so destructively. We can do it in alignment with the environment around us, as long as we have our intention as being in alignment with the environment around us, with not breaking the rules of the game. You may compete, but you cannot exterminate. So our cities shouldn't look the way they look. They should look a lot more organic. And we should be working on ways to channel the critters off into their own spaces, attract and keep the cockroaches completely outside, but have our environmental bubbles that we use to encapsulate the comfort of our own human bodies, have them be less destructive to the natural environment that they abide within. So when I build my home out in the forest, it doesn't have to bring the forest completely down. And one of the ways it won't also is when we do not any longer have to drive our cars directly upon the surface of the planet. Our understanding of the actual nature of gravity is going to be what gives us that. Now that you can see already that's going to open up a whole new can of worms. I see that, you see that. Also, the other thing, anybody having free, clean energy at the point of desire, plugging directly into source, having a little device that just does it connects to source, and all you have to do is take your device, your technology that you're trying to use that needs a power source, and tune it to the frequency of the source box, your source box, and it will run your device. And so now you just run the technologies that we've already created. Then also you make it shameful for the creation of planned obsolescence, so that a single company can keep selling you the same damn device over and over and over and over and over again, so that it can glut. That's stupid. It's stupid. We should all be getting together and deciding what is an amazing, amazing collective use, upgradable, perhaps. If technology really does get significantly better, have certain components of it that are upgradable and then recyclable, so that the old parts, all of the precious rare earth and all of the things that are in that can be easily recycled and turned back into whatever. But for the most part, the greater part of it does not have to keep being made over and over and over and sold back to rich people, or then becomes dust in the hands of a poor person who doesn't have the money to keep upgrading their damn phone. it's wrong and it's stupid and it's carrying a malintention. We've got to find our malintentions. And we don't punish those with malintent. We soothe and heal and turn to the way you defeat your enemies. Say you've made enemies of all the world. The way you defeat your enemies is you don't destroy them all. You find a way to make them all friends. You find the place where we are all in agreement, even the bad ones. Where we are all in agreement, even the Kim Jong-uns. I'll tell you what, even that is a situation where something has gotten completely out of alignment. And he cannot come back to the world until there's a paradigm that does not make him madness and a monster. Something where he could see where what he had done, where he could explain it to himself and the rest of the world, and we all understand it, and then we all come back to humanity, to the human family. And until and unless we do that, and Trump's not coming back either. None of those people are. The answer, you can try to force good behavior on your fellow man, but what you end up with is a population of people who are all about force, and that gets really ugly, and it doesn't take long for that to get really ugly. Because we're just not made that way. This is not how our design is. We need to understand our design. And so this little thing I do, it's little project Who Am I, or the Who Am I project, or just plain old Who Am I. And it's a platform of completely non-resistant thought. I'm pushing back against nobody. I am humanity. We are humanity. No matter who you are, no matter what position you are playing in the play, on the board, in the field, no matter what energy you are propagating or wielding or generating or acting upon, your configuration is your configuration, and you are an integral part of the wholeness that we are. We are a whole morphogenetic field upon this planet. There is no us and them. The enemy is the polarity. When you resist, it persists. It not only persists, it gains momentum. It gains relevance. It gains... The more that we resisted that man, the more the fool turned into a serious threat. And now he's fixing to take office again. And shoot me now. Well, please don't shoot me now. I probably shouldn't be saying things like that. But the answer, we have to keep laughing at it. We cannot take him seriously, and we cannot push back in the same way that we have pushed back before. Don't meet them on their own ground. Take it to a higher ground. The level of the answer is at a different frequency than the one where the problem is. The problem and the answer are in two different vibrational positions on the grid. They're just in two different places. You're not going to find the answer right at the same place where your panties are bound in a wad over the problem. They won't be in the same place. You have to put a little space between the question and the answer, or the problem and the solution. They're not in the same place. That's what Einstein was trying to say. But they're not in the same level. One is an up level. You have to get a little bit broader perspective, a little higher up, so that you can see more of the situation. So, this platform is non-resistant. I push back against no one. No one is my enemy. We are all human beings in this game together. Now, as soon as I get off of this recording, I've got to go out and face the same issues anybody else does. An encroaching population from nations who are not doing so well in some ways. The true answer to all of this would be to find ways to help these people go back to their own jungles and live happily ever after themselves, live Encanto lives. Have you seen the movie Encanto? If you haven't, go look at it and you'll know what reference I'm doing. We all have magic. Each and every one of us has our own magical abilities, and all ecosystems are potential fields of magnificent abundance. They are abundance creating machines. They are desire fulfilling machines. Actually, the whole process of biology and this God force of life on planet Earth, we can work with it. We can co-create with it. The biggest problem that we're having, we have two problems, and hence this show. The two problems are, A, we don't know ourselves, and so we misunderstand our own emotional configuration. Just flat out. And then we take our negative emotions literally when at that moment we are literally backwards. We're facing backwards to our true desires. We've gotten ourselves disoriented and we're looking in the wrong direction. And now if we insist on acting, we are going in the direction of where we don't want to go pretty fast. Now, that's the one thing. And the other thing is in our misunderstandings of ourselves and source and the nature of all things, the source of all reality and the way that it works, its vibrational nature, its black hole nature, its Planck field nature, its vibrational nature, all of that. All of those things, the way we extract energy is implying that we don't understand those things. And when we do understand those things, we understand how to plug into source. Oh, that's what source is. That's how it's doing it. Oh my gosh. When a society gets to a certain technological level where its technology is sophisticated enough and its population is large enough, then the pressure to get off of one energy source and get onto another becomes great enough, because the thinkers of the species know that if this doesn't happen, we are turning the planet into a cinder. And we can see from our broader perspective, from our big old, smart ass neocortex minds, the bigger picture. We can understand what it is we need to do. The problem is fossil fuels, and the answer is get off of them. The near answer is get off them incrementally. The long-term answer is get onto source energy through these little source energy plug-in devices that would be, they're little solid-state devices. How do I know they would exist? Well, I believe they're theoretically possible for a number of reasons. First of all, if you can imagine it, you can do it. But the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It implies something like that. And other things that I know about the situation imply that it is possible. It's just a question of our taking our new, first of all, visual, understand how it fits together in a general sense first. And then, have you done the math? Yes, we have. When the math's been done, now the technology can follow the new understanding. So we collectively, generally, as human beings, need to understand the new understanding of the shape of the universe, how it relates. But also know that since the math has been done, then the higher level 21st, 22nd century technologies can follow. That's all it's going to take is our vision, human beings understanding who we really are. Now that's going to be really necessary, because when we conquer gravity, we're all zipping around the planet wherever the hell we want to go. Our little cars going off to the Grand Canyon don't have to stop at the roads at the top of the canyon. You can fly down into it. There is going to be no place safe from our wandering around. However, if we are now more enlightened beings about the threads of life and how Source is calling us all to a higher organization, we can willingly and kindly and co-creatively garden this planet, and there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be a lot softer and kinder. While we're going to be able to zip around, in a lot of ways, that's going to help a lot of things, because there's going to be a lot more specific step ones in some places where we've been able to hide the truth from each other about how bad or how good, how wondrous is this planet, and how in danger or not in danger it is from the things that we have been doing to it. You know, when people in their little jets and flybys, you know, get a load of Garbage Island, or go check out, you know, the lithium battery farms or whatever. Right now, there's a lot of places that can be kept very secure from our eyes. And people can hide things about how bad it gets when we are in our misalignment. But once gravity is conquered and we're flying around, all of the things are open up to us now. And for ill and then for good, because we're going to be able to solve this. This is not going to be a permanent problem. But the first step is we got to know who we are. Think about this. How is Kim Jong-un, or the future Kim Jong-uns you know, he's figured out how to keep his little tyranny semi-permanent, because he's got, you know, the nuclear weapons to tell the rest of the world to back off. You know, it's not going to be fixed from the outside, people. We're doing this from the inside. And they're going to come up with something. But can you imagine when we're off the surface of the planet and those hovercraft are all over the place? How can you keep it locked down forever? The outside world will plug back in. There is no separation. We can't keep ourselves separated from ourselves forever. We just can't, because we are a single morphogenetic field. And we're going to feel the truth of that someday. I promise. Anyway, so that's the point of my whole dissertation. My whole thesis has to do with, we don't know who we are. And if we did know who we are, we would do a better job of interacting with the biofield of this planet and with each other. It's really important that we interact smoothly and peacefully and kindly and cooperatively with the rest of the field of humanity in just a general way. Because there's a whole lot of us that contribute what we contribute to the wholeness in ways that are not specifically, all of us aren't the food growers, and all of us aren't the shelter builders, and all of us are not the transportation experts, and all of us are not the communications experts, and all of us are not the ones who knit us back together if we hit heavy trauma, like if we fall off a 3-story building. Who's going to put us back together? Not all of us have to do that. Not all of us have to do everything. That's what the cells of your body figured out. Before, they used to be... the first thing that happened on planet Earth was a single-cell organism developed. Now, there's theories about how that could have happened. Seeding is a thought. You know, that the seeds of life, the beginning organisms, were planted on the planet, and on the new planet. Now, whether it was done intentionally or whether it flew by on an asteroid, you know, and landed on the, I don't know. It could be that the fungi, just like bacteria and viruses, they seem to be everywhere. You know, even if you put it into you put something into you put cheese that doesn't have any mold on it into a sterile baggie, and you put it in the refrigerator, and you keep it in there long enough, and that mold's going to grow anyway, because them freaking cells are everywhere. Might be like that. The universe might be like that. I don't know. But the point is, I know what point I was making. The single cell organism developed and did really, really well on planet Earth until the Earth was nothing but slime. With all these single-celled organisms competing for, you know, whatever they were doing. And then they started organizing. You know, like a membrane might, a loose membrane might appear around, you know, and then within it, the cells started to agree, okay, I'll be a kidney cell, and we'll deal with the excretion of liquid, you know, things, wastes. And you go be a heart cell and be involved with pumping the blood through the body. The blood being the medium that's going to carry to and fro. It's like the mail service. It's the distribution center. It's the distribution system. The circulatory system is like the distribution system. Like the supply chain of humanity and our distribution system of supplies to all the different beings. Everybody doesn't have to do everything. We are specialists. And that's really cool. And we've done lots and lots and lots of really cool specializing. The problem is that collectively, our collective overall wholeness of vision has gotten off. And so I no longer trust all of the disciplines of our sciences and what their ends are, what their intentions are, how they're putting back together. They are not coming back together with the wholeness of what they have accomplished and readdressing the wholeness of our situation as human beings, and come at this from any systemic sort of, I don't trust our intentions. When we elect a narcissistic, cheating, lying, selfish, I've already said all the words, so now I can't say narcissist because I've already said narcissistic. But anyway, when we elect that person to the head of our machinery, then that sort of colors the spirit of our entire project. You know? And when we elect a doddering old man from yesteryear with all of yesterday's ideas and all of yesteryear's cosmological viewpoint, and it guarantees that the status quo is going on. Both of those, in a way, are going to guarantee the status quo. One is the status quo of a general, you know, things kind of going okay in some ways. But then the other one is very much a status quo of other things that are going on, which is planetary rape, planeticide, you know, I really don't want to go at the litany of our woes from the wrong direction. I barely talk about them at all in this forum because they create resistance, and we're trying to stay in a resistance-free field. And we're not going to any place where we're pointing any specific fingers. And as a matter of fact, I never want to point specific fingers at anybody, because the answer is never going to be for us to chase down the culprits and wrestle them to the ground and kill them. That's never going to be the answer. The culprit is actually the propensity of the human energy field to fall into polarity. For us to do an us and them, a knee-jerk us and them thing, and then lash out against the them, when in fact all along we are not understanding our own mirror-like fractal mirror nature. You know what I mean? Not understanding our own holographic fractal mirror nature. Not understanding our binary self, our two beings. This is often the very first slide that I change to. I think the rubrics on my YouTube thing struggle to find some other way, some other thumbnail to put on the front of my videos to see if it can find somebody that will listen to them. Because here I am doing this work, hours and hours and hours of it, and why do I only get... Actually, I'm so grateful for any listeners I have. I had 6 listeners yesterday out of the blue, because I've been getting consistently 1 listener and 1 listener and 1 listener, and occasionally 0 listeners, and I'm like, why? That one was a good one. Why didn't anybody find it? You know? And then yesterday, all of a sudden, boom, 6 listeners. I'm so excited. Someday, when I'm ready to really speak this naturally and freely and in front of people and to people and answer their questions and help us all feel good, I don't want to argue with anybody about it. There is no argument about it. At the second that we get into an argument, I know that we've both disconnected from Source, and so nothing good is happening. At least one of us has to be connected to Source for the discussion to have any value, as far as I'm concerned. If both of us are disconnected from our Source, then we are now participating in a small vortex of chaotic storming. I call that lots of things. Shiva energy and demonic energy. And what is our source energy? Well, what the field is doing, the source of all the motion everywhere, is a momentum of spin. Spin is what's happening. And that spin is happening because these quantum vacuum fluctuations are being thrown into spin by virtue of the gradient density in the quantum field. I'm saying, so I'll tell you what the gradient density is. There's a vast gradient density. There's a density that goes from the quantum field, from looking at it from that perspective, when you're down there at the quantum level, looking at what it looks like at the very, very small. That density down there is extremely high. 10 to the 93, really, 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 really big number. Very, very dense, because what you're talking about is like a proton, which is a little vortex of these Plancks spinning. And the density at that level is a really teeny tiny space filled with trillions and jillions and gabillions. I don't even know how you would. I don't even know what kind of a number. It's you have to do 10 to the 60, or it's a big number, a really big number. How many Plancks there are in the Planck field of a single proton? Interestingly enough, apparently, all of the Plancks in the Planck field of a single proton are reflecting information on all of the rest of the protons in all of the universe. There's a fractal reflective nature of all of that too. But at the Planck level, the density is 10 to the 93. At the cosmological level, it's 10 to the minus 30. That's an enormous gradient difference. That's enough to throw planets and galaxies and clusters and superclusters and universes into spin. That kind of difference, if a Planck was thrown from a density into... Oh man, I can even see how it does that. It's mind-bending, though, when you realize how the mathematics unified the quantum and the cosmological. At first look, you look at it and you're like, well, I don't have any understanding of what that means. You know? Well, but the math is there. The math is implying a number of things. First of all, the math is implying that, let's see where my, is it this one? This is the one. The math is implying that the spin is baked into the cake. Spin is fundamental. There is no anything without spin, because what is creating matter is these quantum vacuum oscillations being thrown into spin by gradient densities in the quantum field, in the whole field, in the field, going all the way from the cosmological to the quantum. The gradient density in that field is huge. It's 127 degrees of difference. That's way a lot of difference. It's called the vacuum catastrophe in physics. This difference in the densities between the quantum and cosmological worlds. They can't figure out how to bring those together. Well, mathematically, the way they come together is if you take that Planck at its density, at its quantum density of 10 to the 93, and you blow it up into the size of a universe, you get a universe that is dense at not 10 to the minus 30, it's the number that equals the physical matter that we observe and see, that density, plus all the dark matter and all the dark energy. All of the energy and matter and action that would be required for the universe to stay together, for it to hold together the way it does. If all that the matter is in a bunch of empty space is only the matter we see, then the universe would just fly apart. That's why they feel that there's a need for dark energy and dark matter. They know that there's something holding it together that they don't know what it is. I'll tell you what it is. It's the spin. It's the spin itself. It's like Nassim has a little analogy of coffee and cream. And you have this whole cup of coffee and you swirl it around with your spoon, and you drop a little bit of cream in there, and then you see this spin start to appear in the spinning, swirling force of the coffee that was already there that you didn't see. All you can see is the cream, and you're not adding the coffee in. It's the whole structure is this Planck field that when it organizes becomes little vortices of matter, and when it doesn't organize, it's the field of still solid packed Plancks. They're just not spinning. The whole field at rest is not no energy. At rest, without any matter expressing itself, is still highly energetic. That's why they call it the 0-point energy field. That's why they call it 0-point energy, because when everything's at rest, that energy state is still highly energetic. What do scientists do about that? Well, they don't do anything about it because they don't know what to do with it. It seems that it might be stochastic. They don't understand how it's relating to itself or each other. Well, what it's doing is this. It is relaying all of its information back and forth to itself across the scales, large and small, transferring all data to all points at all times. All points are uploading their informational data to the whole. Every cosmic Planck jiggle that happens through this cosmic divine interference pattern moving across all the scales, all the individual points upload their information upload it to the almighty wholeness. The information of the whole downloads its information of its wholeness back down to each point, infinitely small, because an infinite amount of information can be held on an infinitely small point. You could take the pattern of a hologram and cut it in half, and all the information is still going to be there. You cut it in half again, it'll still be there, theoretically. A lower resolution, but all the information is still there. Cut it down to as small as you can cut it, and all the information is still there, theoretically. Infinitely large amount of information down to... That's how the wholeness is transferring all of its information down to every little bitty bit. Every proton of every bit of matter everywhere is getting a load of all the information of everything going on everywhere. Now, what does that mean? You don't have to really know all this. What this tells me is that I possess... So Abraham tells us, and I believe them, there's a lot of people tell you some version of this. Let me find it. Abraham tells us that we have an inner being. And this is my representation of the inner being. It turned out to be yesterday's thumbnail, and 6 people watched yesterday's, whereas only 1 person had watched a few days before that, which is interesting. But anyway, Abraham tells us we have an inner being, and this is the way I conceive of this inner being, because I believe she is true. I believe she is correct about this. We do have an inner being. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it the Holy Ghost, and some people, they just call it God, and they think it's something other than themselves. They don't realize that it is a bit of cosmic anatomy that is attached to them. It's something that they cannot shake. You may feel at times that you can shake the Almighty, that you can shake the allness that you are inextricably a part of, but you cannot. You are tethered to your source energy aspect. And you can imagine it like a spinning disc. It's a spinning disc of attraction, and it is spinning with all the rest of the universe, and it is harmonizing with all the rest of the universe. That's what your source mind is doing. Now, what your physical mind is doing, that's something completely else. But the reason I bring this up is because right on the tails of having been talking about the quantum field is because your recognition of how physical physics says that we are holographic, at least the new unified physics says that, how that supports the notion that something that belongs to you, something located right where you are, could have all the information of all the universe everywhere. Your inner being, this is how your inner being knows everything. This is how your inner being can guide you. She is the continuum of the larger part of all that you are. She knows what you care about. And what you care about is things like peace and fairness and comfort and abundance and play and fun and accomplishment and exhilaration and cooperation. And because from her perspective, there is only one of us here. She is equally invested in the futures and the success of all other human beings, as well as all other beings. So she doesn't just want human beings to succeed and all of the rest of non-human beings to fade away into nothingness. That's not what she wants. And frankly, that's not what we want either. It's certainly what non-human beings want. None of us wants that. And Source knows that. Source knows what we want. Source knows the world that we want to create. A world of peace on earth, goodwill towards men. A world where we all have all of our needs met. As per Bashar's little 1, 3, 5, 7, 11 download, our 7 needs are air, water, sleep, food, shelter, relationship, and expression. And that's in the order that if we don't have them, we will die. Your physical being will come to a stop at some point. Your spirit will go on and probably come into another body and have another go at it. It's what life does. You're choosing to do this all the time. This exercise in life is what we are all about. And more of it, having more of what all of us desire, is what we're all about. Your inner being can see the point where we all come together. Your inner being can see the win-win position. The win-win for the most number, for the most joyful expression of life. That's what she's all about. Now, what are you all about? Are you all about getting even with your neighbor for, having a barking dog, or, what are you about? What are you about? What is your physical mind occupied with? Are you thinking mean, small, dirty little thoughts? Or are you thinking bigger, more expansive, expansive is a good word for that. What kind of thoughts are you thinking? And now nobody's judging you. There's not a judgment going on, but there's a physical mechanism going on that is what's the word? It certainly is self-judgmental, but self-enforcing. It's self-enforcing, and nobody's doing it to you. That's the thing. You've got to figure out what's going on, and you're the one who's doing it to yourself. And so you have to be the one to figure it out and quit doing it. Nobody else is doing it to you. And that is hold on a second. This is so hard to keep focus on this stuff. It is so esoteric, and it wants to just blow away. That's why I have to keep coming into this room and trying to capture it and capture it and capture it and capture it, so that then I can speak it freely and more quickly and more sure-footedly, and I can hold on to these esoteric concepts for longer than a second. And if I happen to lift my mind off of it for a second to think something else, it doesn't fly away into the breeze, and it's like, how did those connect? What was I saying? So the you that you really are is this pure positive self, and you can't get away from that. It's pure positive forward-looking energy. That's who your source self really is. That's all she is. She's pure positive, vibrational, and how you can even believe that she can exist is knowing how the structure of the universe is. When you see the structure of the universe, you understand. It's all spinning disks. It's all vibrational, and it's all holographic. All of that supports. Oh yeah, I can have an inner being, can't I? Oh yeah. We are all evolving to the forward. And no matter what humanity thinks, if we don't play the rules, if we don't play by the rules, and we keep snipping the threads of life, we're going to find ourselves dead. We're not going to escape planet Earth and go start fresh on Mars. If we can't do it here, where we've got this biological head start, we're not going to be able to make it on Mars, where there's nothing there to begin with. Not unless we figure some of this out. And if we figure some of this out, we will flourish not only on planet Earth, but we will be able to make it to Mars. I don't think it'll be that big of a problem once we understand that there are different ways to bring physical objects into being, other than going out into nature, sourcing all kinds of raw materials, taking it into factories, and then physically building it into other objects. That's one way of doing it, but I don't think that's the only way of doing it. I think you can work directly with the quantum field and get it to morph the planks into, because the planks will go into any shape whatsoever, because absolutely everything that is made of anything is made of planks. It's not made of anything else. It's made of planks. Planks spinning. The spinningness of it is causing all the forces, strong, weak, gravitational. And the cores, the little vortices of spin itself, are the little protons that are causing the matter. And that's what the universe is made of. And so when you understand that, there are other ways. There are ways that extraterrestrials make things, which make the metals that they come up with way purer. The kinds of things that we can't make, smelt stuff and turn it into stuff as good as that. Even with all of our brains and technology, we can't do that, because we're not using a full-blown, mature, collected and connected vision and understanding of our source yet. But we will. This higher understanding of ourselves is what's going to be required if we're going to allow every Tom, Dick, and Harry who has a plug to plug unlimited clean free energy, to plug his technology into unlimited clean free energy. He's still going to have to acquire the technologies that he will then plug into the clean free energy. But with all the energy that he can use, he can do whatever he wants with his own land. He can grow his own food, he can build his own shelter, he can interact harmoniously with his environment if he wants to. All of us need to be allowed to go off and do our own thing in a million jillion different ways. Right now we are working with large-scale personalities. We call them nations. I'm not sure what that's going to look like in the future. We might still have those. And they become big ethnic senses of identity, identified mostly by their fashions and their foods and their music and their culture. Their culture will define them, not their guns and their governments. The governments will be only things that we come together in agreement to do. We are not forced to be together in our disagreement. We only come together in the things we agree that are a good thing to do, and all of the rest of the things we do our own thing with. We are taught when we are young who we are, what our design is, so that young children know that at first, their first years of life are all about feeling their emotions and getting a sense of what they are, getting a sense of their bearings on this, who am I and how does this physical experience even work? Show me who I am and how this works, and I'm gone. Let me take off. Let me fly around the grid and see what I can accomplish, see what I can see what I can do, see what I can find, see who I can be, see what we can create that will be to the mutual benefit and glory of us all. And the non-human world. I'm sick and tired of when human beings move into a situation, absolutely everything else has to give way. It doesn't have to be that way. We could teach our children to respect and get to know the outside non-human world. We could become creatures that non-human creatures could start to learn to trust somewhat. If we had ways of surviving comfortably, peacefully, joyfully, abundantly, and connectedly with one another that did not have to kill every other non-human being and hog all the food to ourselves and hog all the water to ourselves and hog all the habitat land to ourselves, and anything that's remotely dangerous we've got to poison it out or blow it out of existence. it's a mistaken philosophy, and it's not a philosophy that your inner being shares. And it's one of those things that we actually can work this out between ourselves and the non-human world. I sort of have a little thing going on in my own backyard as I insist on not curtailing the squirrels that are around and I've got a lot of squirrels. There's lots and lots of squirrels all over the place. And there's young squirrels that have now come out of their dens, and they are nibbling at the feeders, the bird feeders, under where the bird feeders drop little niblets of seed. I only put those out every other day now, which means, and there's less birds that come, which means there's less niblets that fall on the ground. I grow lots of food, though. There's apricots and stuff that are falling to the ground, and the apricot pits all have a little tiny nut in there that rodents take into my garage and eat in the winter. I think mice do that. Squirrels might do that too. I don't know. Anyway, we've got to learn how to get along with the rest of the biofield and still keep our homes secure and relatively germ-free. We don't want to be as germ-free as we think we want to be. We're a lot healthier if we are exposed in a good, significant way to the rest of the microbiome of the planet. Our gut health is better. Our immune system works better. There's all kinds of things that work better if we are exposed to the microbiome of the planet. If we are too isolated from it, if we grow up in a sterile bubble, you are in a lot of danger. You don't want to do that. You don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. We don't need to be using our physical minds the way that we are using our physical minds. We need to do a little minor shift in how we use our physical minds. First of all, we need to line them up with Source. We need to know that Source is the one that knows all. And Source knows it all very physically, very literally, very in physics. Knows where all the objects are and how they are moving because they're spinning. And all of the individuated spins mysteriously somehow are tethered to the source spin that we all come out of. And that's how somehow Source knows where we all are and what we're all doing and what we all want. And that's how come if we would find our true connection to our pure desire, that pure desire, what is our pure desire? Our pure desire is for the feelings themselves. Our pure desire is for a sense of freedom, a feeling of abundance, a sense of joy and fun and love and connection. Those feelings are what we crave. And our source mind knows exactly what physicality would bring us those experiences. Now, how it works, we work in tandem. This binary system that we are, the way it works is we have to, in our physical, so our source mind is our desire. All you Catholics out there who have been trained that our desire is the source of evil, in a way, it's true. They're not wrong, but the problem is not the desire itself. You're not going to get rid of the desire, because the desire for more, for better, for improvement, it doesn't mean for me specifically, for me, my individual, I have to accrue more and more and more stuff for me. It doesn't have to equal that. It could be me who don't care whether I own much of anything or not. My desire for more peace, more harmony, more beauty, more freedom, more love, more joy, more abundance, more efficiency, more clarity, all that kind of stuff. I can have those kinds of desires, and indeed, that's what your inner being does have, is those desires. So the idea is, what you have to do in your physical self, you have to go find those vibrations. You thought that you had to just scan the horizon. Well, you can do it this way, actually. But if you would do it this way, you would have to lock onto what's giving you a good vibration, not lock onto the horror that has you transfixed and is causing you to emit a completely different vibration. What you need to do is you got to go find the vibration of the wanted. You have to go find that vibration. What is freedom? And find that vibration and emanate it. Well, how do I emanate this vibration if I am not free? Well, first of all, you are free. You are free. You may be focusing on the wrong thing if you think that you are not free. You might be focusing on the bars of your prison cage, and you might say, well, I'm not free. Look at that. Well, you're free to do the only thing you ever needed to do in the first place, and the reason you might be behind bars is because you haven't done this one thing up until now. You didn't get out ahead of it, and you probably let some aspect of your negative personality drive your vehicle for a time, and they did something that was not really in your direct interest, and you ended up in jail. That's why those prison bars are there to begin with, because you could have done this earlier, but you didn't get out ahead of it, and so there's the prison bars. Well, better late than never, because you still have human beings that you're relating to within prison, and you might even have some non-human beings, depending on what kind of a situation you're in. I don't know. Your non-human beings are vastly limited when you're in a prison situation, but the point is you are always free. You're free to do the one thing that would make you feel good, the one thing that would let you know what, from this position I've gotten myself into, what would be the best move to take from here. All of those things can be achieved if you would get into alignment with yourself. You are two beings. Quit thinking you're just one, and that you can think whatever you want, and there is no... The only thing that will cause me to feel what I feel is the reality around me, because I am only one being, and the only thing I'm doing is looking at reality, and if I like it, then I get one kind of hit, and if I don't like it, I get another kind of hit. If you think you're just one creature, one aspect, then that's what you think's happening. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is all is well, first of all. All is well. All is good. Everyone is good. I know that is so hard for some people to hear, because those people over there are so obviously not acting good. They are murderous, and they are antisocial, and they are chaotic, and they are unruly, and they are rascally, but we are all good. We're all good. And the only thing where wickedness comes from, and there is such a thing as wickedness, there absolutely is such a thing as wickedness. I know that my friend Paul Levy, and I keep calling him my friend, but he's never met me. He maintains that evil, it's so evil. Well, it is, actually. Evil is the condition of being disconnected from your source. And a human consciousness disconnected from its source can take the momentum into incredibly gut-wrenching, stomach-turning depths when they are out of their alignment, when they do not have their source guiding them. The human consciousness can go into very, very dark places. The human consciousness all by itself, the physical mind, unenlightened by its source, by reality, by its connection to reality. You've got to know that if you are not connected to your source, you're not connected to the data stream of all information, of all reality, of all the universe around you. And so that really seems to me like you're operating at a great disadvantage. It's ultimately why Hitler failed, because his paradigm was built upon universal laws and truths that didn't exist. He was so sure that because his race was the master race, it was not possible for them to lose. And because the paradigm of all of evolution is he thought that war was necessary, was mandatory. You did not want to be at peace. That would be a grave mistake. And all kinds of things. He thought all kinds of things that were stupid and wrong. And that's why he failed. But he got as far as he did because of the clarity that he got through the way he... the problem is that there is a kind of negative synchronicity. When you close your mind in a negative way and you draw your conclusions and you go off on your whatever, you might find that you start resonating with other beings, and the timing of what you all are doing might start getting good in the darkness that you are creating. It's very mythological. The whole thing is way more mythological than we're giving it credit for. We all act like it's all understood. It's under control. Somebody's got the whole thing worked out. I don't know why I changed it to this slide. That other slide, it's my favorite slide, and yet it's so nothing. It just sits there and bees nothing. But it illustrates our binary nature. You really are those two selves. And the vibrational aspect of you, it includes more than just the body that you are in right now. It's more of a project being. It's a bigger you that understands the parts that everybody's playing in this super creation that we are all working on. This super creation, which is ourselves as a sustainable species. This has to involve our broader perspectives coming together and understanding who we really are and how this really works and what exactly is the problem that we're having right now. One of it is centralized, top-down power structures, empires and military forces, and it's forcing everyone to capitalize. It's forcing all nations to start turning their truffula trees into needs in order to trade for goods on the human supply chain. And we've got to think about that. We are a superorganism. We have waste products that we keep coming up with. We need to have an organized system for recycling and reusing all of the things and minimizing how much we have to recycle in the first place. Like I said, planned obsolescence ought to be a travesty, ought to be one of those things that we are so ashamed of someone if it turns out that, because that is so that is so contrary, so in misalignment with the mission statement of humanity. The mission statement being, we want to thrive. We want to thrive into the 21st and 22nd centuries and 23rd and 24th and 25th. I want to be here 1,000 years from now, doing more cool, fantastic things, co-creating with the field around me, building a magnificent tomorrow for ourselves and our great-great-great-great-grandchildren. I want to do that. How would I possibly do that? Well, I think the way to do that is to understand who we are. Understand who we are and what this source energy is and what it means to act when you're under the influence of a negative emotion and what that creates in the world. Now, it just creates a reverberating vibration that others can, tune into, pick up on, resonate with, and start behaving destructively. Another thing that happens, and it's how you can see physically why it happened. Because I can claim stuff philosophically, but we can then trace it back down to on the ground what that looks like as it plays out. Moment by moment. What does that look like? Well, what it looks like when I build as a city planner, if I build or a systems planner, let's just call it a systems planner. If I, as a systems planner, design a system when I was not plugged into my source, and the system that I design does not fulfill all the needs of all the individuals that we're talking about. It's a municipal system of some sort, and it does not fulfill all the housing needs, for instance, or all the food needs, or all of the transportation or all the needs, some sort of significant needs of the population within that municipality. It does not fulfill everybody's needs, and so there's a whole bunch of people who are not getting food. They aren't getting something that they need. And they're getting angry. They're getting frightened. They're starting to get desperate. They start to do things like steal food from other people. They start to cheat on things in order to get the paperwork or whatever that allows them to sneak into the supply chain or whatever. And then when they do that, then it's more than what was accounted for in the first place. It starts throwing the whole system off. If we're not in alignment, people, the systems that we design are not going to be adequate to the task. And the task is to sustainably organize 10 billion souls on the planet, perhaps. It might be that. Right now it might be 8. I'm not sure if we're at 8 or if we've just passed 8 or if we're 8's in the rear view mirror. I don't know. How many billion people are there on planet Earth? We are surely going to make it to 10 before we zero out. Before we make it to the place where our lack catches up with us and we are forced to understand how to recreate abundance. How do you do that? Mother Nature will help you do that. And your own inner being will guide you to what is best for you to do in this situation. I do believe that there is a win-win-win-win possible, and I believe that the biggest reason why we are having problems right now on planet Earth is because we're using fossil fuels. And as soon as we get on to better sources of energy, the first thing we need to do is start incrementally getting off of fossil fuels through the use of over-unity devices, which most people have been taught are physically impossible. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is not impossible. It's not impossible at all, as a matter of fact. There are all kinds of ways to create devices that will put out more energy than it takes to run the dang thing. Maybe it's, there's one that some guy created. I hope he hasn't been murdered yet. He's in Africa. He was documented in the Thrive 2 movie. You could go check and see whether he's still alive. I hope he is. He invented it's a machine. It looks about the size of a gas pump. About that size, the kind you pull up to and then gas up from the part that sticks up above ground, one of those little units. And it runs about 300 houses, and it's locked into some frequency out in the ether somewhere, out in the cosmos. It's locked onto a frequency, and it's got a little thing that's doing something locked onto that frequency, and it's generating power. The reason that is a device that works is because it's not creating energy that doesn't already exist. That idea that you can't create energy out of nothing. Well, there isn't anywhere where there is nothing. There is no such thing as a closed system, people. And that really opens up the idea for a whole lot more being possible than our national security has been letting us know about. It's been squashing these devices right and left because it claims that national security is at stake. And while I understand what they're talking about, yes, it is a problem if cult leader wannabe, can amass unlimited free clean energy to themselves, everyone can go off into the bushes and be their own Kim Jong-un, their own Jim Jones, or their own whatever. We got to get sort of in a place where our consciousness has risen to a level where we understand who we are as source, who we are as powerful creators, who we are as eternal beings, who we are as biology, who we are as the human morphogenetic field, who we are as the human Who Am I project. Now in this, what is our story? What is our story? And where would we start that story? His story. History, prehistory. I think our actual history, the history that I speak of, began about 200,000 years ago, give or take a century or two. I don't know exactly when this is. I'm not sure who could tell you this. It coincides with when the anthropologists will tell you that anatomically modern humans appeared upon planet Earth. That's when our story started. And what happened was some naturally occurring hominid primate species on planet Earth at the time got a little artificial bump through some sort of extraterrestrial CRISPR genetic tweaking technology. We're genetically modified human beings. We've got a blown up neocortex that blown up nature, some of it at least, appears to be coming from our human chromosome number 2, which is a fused chromosome. Somebody has fused, I say somebody has fused this, but I can tell you with great surety, with absolute surety, that we have this fused chromosome. And if you look at its configuration, it's fused at the telomere with some redundancies on both sides of it clipped away, which sort of is making it hold together. It stabilized the fusion, and it's responsible for 76% of our neocortex volume, which is our overview mind. The mind of our physical mind that is analogous to our overview source mind. That's how come now you're thinking thoughts that either resonate or do not resonate with source, because you can think overview thoughts, not just knee-jerk in this physical moment appropriate reactions to threats and stuff going on to your physical body in your immediate physical vicinity. You can have thoughts that are bigger than that are longer than that include more time frame. You can think in the past and in the future. You can think about stuff that is nowhere near where your physical body is. You can do all kinds of things that your source mind can do too. And when you use your physical mind to take small, mean little thoughts, it may feel good in a moment, because that's all those emotions are for, is for a momentary reaction about something in your physical, something in the environment that is that is not in alignment with what feels good with you. That's allowed. If you are observing rape or war, destruction, anything like that, you don't need to have a happy response to that. You can have a response to that. But then now when you take the overview position, what is the whole thing about? If you take that negative thing with you to that position, now you are in direct resonant discord with what your inner being knows to be true about everything. And you got yourself turned backwards, and now if you physically act, not only will you be taking your own physical life into places where you don't want to go. You're headed to jail, or you're headed to the hospital, or you're headed to some divorce court or something that is not, that could be seen as a moment of contrast. Now, Maybe it's a clarifying moment. Maybe you need to take those fights all the way to divorce court. Because you need to free yourself from that particular marriage. But then that whole experience was such a clarifying thing. Man, I know what I don't want now. I don't want to be married to another alcoholic. But then... Anyway, I don't want to digress. I feel like I'm digressing here. Who am I? And who do I think genetically modified us? Well, I have no idea. But I think it would be really interesting if people like our National Academy of Sciences could have a general view of the world such that they could see that it was reasonable to put their minds to it. Why do our mainstream conventional scientists, why are they all looking in these other directions? I think we need to back up and add more of us in. We all add into this picture. You can't just... I also do believe that fossil fuel is the biggest problem. The biggest problem we've got going. It is creating an artificial paradigm of lack. Now, those in the field who are good at this they're either good at the art of doing this deliberately, or something about their upbringing is causing them to do this naturally. All the people who are connected well to Source are doing well on planet Earth right now. All the ones who are having a harder time with that are falling more to the bottom and competing with one another at the bottom of the pile, and they are not doing so well. And then there are those out in the reaches of whatever who need to be added in. We don't need them to emulate First World. First World is actually not in the best position. It's not in the position it thinks it's in. Because the new technologies do not require roads and do not require wires. And so all of the sophisticated road and wire technology present in all of the First World is only going to be a detriment when we get to our true 21st and 22nd century heritages. They're only going to be in the way. It's going to be shit we have to clean up. Now, you don't have to look at that as a problem. We can do it. We have lots of hands right now that are idle or actively involved in things that are, frankly, facing backwards. They are actively creating things that will only have to be knocked back down. They aren't sustainable. They are not in alignment with the technologies of the future, with the true nature of who we really are, the connected beings that we truly are, the universally conscious, pure liquid love beings that we really are. There is only one of us here. There is no us and them. This endless paradigm of win-lose has got to stop. It won't stop until our consciousness raises. We need to up-level, and we need to do it now. We are caterpillars coming to the end of the foliage on the bush, and it's time for us to cocoonize and turn into butterflies. You know, we need to become who we really are. We need to know who we really are. And hence, I come into this space, and in all the non-resistant thought that I can offer, that I can throw at this, I engage in Project Who Am I, or the Who Am I Project. I actually own more domains that are at the Who Am I Project, .net, .org, .com, .xyz, .info. I think I own all of those in the Who Am I Project. Who Am I think I just own whoami.net, and then No, I don't own that. I own... Maybe I do. And I own whoamiinthefield.com. I think I own whoami.net. I think that's the one I own. It's hard to say. I own a bunch of these. They're ready to be populated. I am not a tech person, and I'm not going to be the one who does this. I am going to be at the center of an activity of cooperative componency as others do their thing and I do my thing, and we all do it creatively, and we all do it joyfully, and we all do it happily, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be constructive, and at the end of it all, we are all going to have a better general sense of who we are as a species, who we are as a powerful creator, who we are as a biotechnology, who am I as an individual, who am I as a super being, a super organism. That's the word, super organism. What does my emotional guidance system mean? It's telling me how I am resonating or not resonating, my two beings, my two minds, source specific, my SS, my source mind, my specific mind. How are those two relating with one another? Well, you can tell by how you feel. And just know that if you're in any state of negative emotion, your two selves are not blending. You have unplugged. You are now on the discord, resonant discord, not resonant harmonics with your inner being. And so you should fix that before you do anything else, because your inner being truly does know what we all want. That's literally what it knows. It knows what we all want, and what we all need, and what would all be good, and what would all be fun, and what would all be freedom enhancing, and beauty enhancing, and abundance enhancing. That's what your inner being is focused on at all times, while passively knowing all things. It's actively looking at what you want. That's who your inner being is. That's why your desire is so important. But what you have to do in order to keep your desire from being that toxic demon that the Catholic Church will warn you about, and not just the Catholic Church, they all warn you about the demons and your desire. Go watch the show Lucifer for a minute. And you can see how we have gotten that mythology sort of twisted around. What we think that the devil is, or what wickedness, what our desire is, how it's the root of all evil. Our desire is the root of all evil. And that's not true. Our desire is the root of all betterment upon the planet. Throughout evolution, forever and ever. Amen. That is what our desire is. Now, our misaligned, twisted, source-free desire is a different matter entirely. And that's why it's so important that you line yourself up with you and care about how you feel, and don't let yourself keep acting anyway if you're in a state of negative emotion. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Soothe yourself. We are all okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. The biggest threat that we have, it is true what FDR said. The only thing to fear is fear itself. The only thing to fear is negative emotion. But you don't want to fear that, because that's negative emotion, and that's the beginning of the vicious cycle. Don't beat yourself up for your negative emotion. Love yourself. Cajole yourself. Soothe yourself out of your negative emotion. Know that you are a powerful, important piece to this equation, and you are supposed to feel good. Your equipment is designed such that when it is operating optimally, at least most of the time, you feel good. Who amongst us can say that that is true about us? You know? I've gotten to the point where I can say that, but when I turn and realize that we have, well, now, so I don't do it anymore. I do not actively turn and face our problems anymore. I can see them. I can see them in my peripheral vision. I know we got problems. As a human being, I know we've got problems. 6 mass extinction, persistent wars, starving people, and starving humans and non-humans, both children and grown-ups. It's all bad. I don't like to see any biological being starve. It's a harsh thing to see. Lack is causing that, and a state of lack is not a healthy ecosystem. We're not in a healthy ecosystem environment. We have not found our sustainable feet underneath us. We have been operating up to this time through a system we call the law. The law, the criminal justice system, the system of laws that are really long lists of things that we're not allowed to do. And then we have the executive branch, which is really that branch of the government that determines if somebody broke any of the rules. Then they get to enforce the laws, which means that you get to throw people in jail, and then you have to have all the courts, and you have to have all the lawyers, and you have to have all the police officers, and then you have to have all the military to do that with all the other nations who are misbehaving. The law, the law, the law, the law, the law. And that has been what has held us together up until this point. And I'm not dissing the law. And to some extent, we're still going to have strong guidelines enforced with loving but insistent, like we're going to insist that you not start firing firearms, in every direction in the middle of the town square. We are going to gently insist on that. And while theoretically we are not going to make a law that you have to enforce, see, that's the problem. We have to move to the time of the Spirit. It's the new second coming of Christ. It's not a celebrity event. It's not a statement of a single celebrity individual that's going to come forth and lead the way. It is a statement of us coming to the point where we realize that we have to plug each of us individually into our own individual source, and from there follow the Spirit that will guide us to our true organization, to our sustainable organization, to our loving, kind, fun, happy, joyful, sustainable organization, into a long and happy future. Is my hope, is my prayer, is my intention to help us do. I think all we need is to generally know who we are. And then each and every individual go out and do your best. And if you see somebody who's ornery or hateful or angry or shitty, well then clean up your own vibration, because you shouldn't be seeing people that clearly. But if you do see someone when you're in a state of alignment, do whatever you can to stay in your own alignment, especially if you have to keep interacting with them, because you'll be inspired to that cajoling, friendly, connected, loving way to interact with them. We're all in this together, ornery and otherwise. And the more we mash together, all with our different colors and our different religions and our different philosophical outlooks and our different political parties and our different ideas about what would be good, if all of us would learn to lean a little more into our imaginations as we imagine what would be better, rather than spending so much time focusing on and complaining about and offering a vibration that matches all of the things that we don't like in the world. focus on what you like about your neighbor. Focus on what you like about your children. Focus on who they really are. Quit assuming that they are worthless, deadbeat couch potatoes that don't want to be better. They've just shut so many things down because they don't know how to be and they don't know who they are. But you could bring them back to life by focusing on who they are. Who they are is loving, kind, good-intentioned beings, and I don't care what they're acting like. Well, so I would have to do a lot more to get somebody from the position I just described to the position that I'm trying to get us all to. So what do I do? What do I do with my deadbeat, alcoholic, ne'er-do-well child? First of all, you got to get really, 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 really big and know that what's going on here right now isn't quite as serious as we have been thinking that it is. We watched something yesterday, and somewhere in the middle of this movie, they were talking about this philosophy of, taking every chance and, just who cares, what does it matter, because life is too short. And I have to disagree with that just a little bit, because life is both short and eternal. So you sort of have to live as though you might die any second, and also as though you're going to have to live in this mess forever. So you better learn what it is and clean it up. You can't just shit and go, because you're going to have to come back, because this is a long-term project. This is not just, we are on Project Earth, Project Humanity, Project Who Am I? We're in the middle of all of that is what we're doing. And so we need to understand who we are, because you are an eternal continuum of desire. And we are on the peace project. As a matter of fact, our little exploration into world war is the clearest activity that we've done so far on Project Planet World Peace. Now, I know it doesn't quite look like that because there's still little wars raging here and there. But I'll tell you what, it is better than it used to be, because what Vladimir Putin did, whenever he did that, is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 1.5? I'm not sure how long that war's been going on. The one in the Middle East has been going on since October. The one in the Ukraine is a little longer than that. It's either, I know it's past 1 year. I don't know whether it's past 2 years. In any case, the Ukraine one would have thrown the whole world into World War III. If we hadn't learned some things in World Wars I and II. Now, all of us haven't learned it, but enough of us have learned it that we didn't just enthusiastically all jump right into that one like we did the first time. We jumped into World Wars I and II rather enthusiastically. And that was way more serious than we thought it was going to be. The Holocaust is not something we want to ever repeat. Although in little ways it's being repeated all the time, because it's a spirit, it's a Wetiko spirit, it's a soulless, inner being, source-free perspective taken to its illogical and monstrous conclusion. It is subtraction consciousness at its horrific worst. It is the reason we need to understand who we are, because who we are, while being the glorious, liquid love, playful, joyful otters of the universe on the one hand, and we truly are that, we have within us, when we behave without our source, without our inner beings guiding us, without an understanding of our vibrational global positioning system that we've got going on, without knowing that, without walking in the light of your source, there is no bottom, no depth, no bottom to the abyss that we can fall to. There is no bottom to how evil and wicked and horrifying that can get. So what's the answer? What is the moral to this story? Do not go anywhere without your inner being. That means do not take up thoughts that are not brain and heart connected. Do not act without being in alignment with your broader perspective, because you truly can create wickedness and perpetuate energies of darkness if you do that. And don't beat yourself up for it. Just find your happy thought. That's why the mythologies tell you that you have to find your happy thought if you want to be able to fly. I think that's a pretty good place to end it. I did not get technical with the slides much. If you're a regular of the show, you know I have the slides. I didn't even really do much with the list, the links list. Just look at this. That's all the links that I have. I'm not going to describe them because I want to end before the 2-hour mark. Like I said, I don't want to go over 2 hours. That's all my links, and they link you to movies that you need to watch and YouTube things that you need to. There's a technical paper connection to. I should connect to the PNAS article too. I could do that. There's Paul Levy's stuff, The Origin of Mass, Nature of Gravity. There's a couple of movies, Living in the Future's Past, Connected Universe, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. That's always the one at the top. That's going to get us off fossil fuels. In any case, I love you so much. Thank you for watching. If you've been watching, if you've been listening, then I really appreciate you. You are doing something to my consciousness, allowing me to go on, and I feel really good about the whole project. I feel good about continuing this oral meditation every day, every day, every day. Tell your friends if you're interested in any of this and you think anybody, might be helped by this. I also have a lot to say about all of what this all means individually as I face my life, and how do I find my path, and how do I make my relationships work, and how can I be there for my children, and how can I interact effectively, efficiently, joyfully, playfully, creatively, and co-creatively with the field around me. How do I do all that? Well, we're going to discuss it every day. We'll be back tomorrow to do the same thing. Now I've run out of time. So until tomorrow, I love you so much. I wish you well. Your success is my success. I bid you peace, and most importantly of all, keep that plugged into Source, and may the Source be with you always.